Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm at a really weird angle today. I'm sorry because I've been working on the podcast room like I've been telling you. So I've been trying to find a better angle, and I know I'm probably not very good with this, with the lighting and all that stuff, but I'm trying my hardest here. So sorry if this is at a very strange angle because it is. But I wanted to get on today because I just posted a video the other day. I wanted to post a video about some biblical parallels that are going on right now that are just absolutely insane. So obviously everybody knows that Donald Trump was just indicted in March, and then just this week, still, right? It's still Saturday. So this week he was arraigned. And the day that Donald Trump was arraigned, well, before I mention that, I want to share, because I shared on this channel before, my dream. And the dream that I had about Trump was that this is back on 11/11/2020. So this was on the anniversary of Robert Hunt, basically on the anniversary of the Mayflower Compact that Robert Hunt helped really, he was the forerunner of that. And if you read the Mayflower Compact, it's talking about the United States and the covenant we have with God. It's very interesting. It's before the Declaration of Independence. This is in 1620. On the 400th anniversary of that, I've shared on this channel before, on the 400th anniversary of that, I had a dream on 11/11/2020. And this was when all this stuff was going out, and, they said that Joe Biden was president-elect on that Friday evening, but it was like, was it really? That following, nobody really knew. That we thought stuff was still getting sorted out, and then obviously the Supreme Court hearing, and then all the way from December, and then all the way to, from the court hearing, and then from all the way to January 6th. People know that whole process to happen. I had a dream that following Tuesday from that election week, and the dream that I had was of Trump, that he would die. He said that he was going to die in 3 days. And basically, the next day, in my dream, I was walking to a church for a Trump rally, is what it looked like. But there was a casket there that was open, and there was no one in it. And Trump's podium was there, and he was going to speak in front of his own casket. And so I saw that he was going to die in 3 days. He told the press he was going to die in 3 days. And so it's like he was being resurrected, because then he was going to speak in front of his own casket at a church I was going to that was like a Trump rally. And there's a lot more details to the dream. But I had that dream on 11/11/2020, and Trump was just arraigned on Nissan 13, which is April, what was that Tuesday? April 4th. April 4th, Nissan 13, which was when Jesus was arraigned by the Sanhedrin. The same exact day that Jesus was arraigned, on Passover week, on Holy Week, they call it, this week, Trump was arraigned. And not only that, but they just extended his court case after all of this to December 4th of this year. And December 4th of this year is Kislev 21, which is, the Jews know this date. This is another prophetic date. Like they won't stop here with the prophetic paradigm we're in here, pattern. This was, Kislev 21 was when Alexander came to Jerusalem, because the Sumerians were telling Alexander the Great that the Jews would not put their statue up in his temple. And so he was basically going to come and just tear the temple down, destroy the temple, and probably kill some people, because that's what Alexander did. He just went through and his army would just destroy everything. And so he came to talk to the priest there. I can't remember his name, there in Jerusalem. He took him into the temple and told him that their culture, you cannot put a graven image anywhere in the temple. So they couldn't do that. And he basically said, we respect you, though, and in honor of you, we want to name our firstborn, I think it's the firstborn sons, they named him Alexander. And so that's why you have all these, in Jewish culture, you have Alexanders everywhere because of that deal that he made, basically, or that honor that he made to Alexander. And in that, the plot of the enemy to try to get Alexander to destroy the temple and destroy the Jews that the Sumerians tried to, it didn't work. So the date that they put Trump from Nisan 13, the day that Jesus Christ got arraigned, Donald Trump got arraigned, now the next court date is December the 4th, they said today. And this day is Kislev 21, when another turnaround, when the enemy was another checkmate to the enemy. Anniversary of that. It's just incredible. Where Alexander the Great was going to destroy the temple, and they made a deal with him, and they honored him. There's a lot of parallels going on right now. And the one that I've talked about before at this channel, and I know I've deleted some videos, and I'm trying to kind of start over with fresh, and I want to bring some of the old ideas that I've talked about in the past, but I know a lot of people understand the biblical parallel of Cyrus, that people have called Donald Trump a Cyrus ever since 2015. This is way before he even really decided to run for president. It was in the news a little bit. They had called him a Cyrus, and God was anointing him for that because he was thinking about running for president. And then we all know that process and how it happened. And then into 2016 with the primaries, and just, history goes on from there. Cyrus, I know this is a biblical parallel of Babylon, because that's what gets talked about a lot. And it's very much like Egypt. And as we're in Passover week today, which today was the day that they crossed over the Red Sea, Nisan 17, today, April 8th, Nisan 17. And so this is just a very prophetic day. Even a year from today that I'm talking to you right now, April 8th, 2024, will be an eclipse. I've shown you this before, but the 7-year eclipse, remember the one that we had in August of 2017, we've got another one in 2024 that basically is like a 7-year cycle of X marks the spot, total solar eclipse. It's just, here's a picture of it. So this is, let's see if I can find it. Well, maybe it's not going to work. Oh, I don't have my thing in there. There we go. Sorry for the technical difficulties. So you probably remember the 2017 and then 2024, April 8th, literally a year from today. So, X marks the spot. And where does it mark the spot at? It marks literally in Illinois, but not only in Illinois, but Little Egypt, Illinois. So we've been in an Egypt paradigm for a while. It's like, what's with all these paradigms? We got Osiris from Babylon. We've got, we're exiting out of Egypt. It's Passover week. There's all this stuff, but it's been called a Passover decade. If you watch Chuck Pierce at Gloria Zion, Chuck Pierce has prophesied that we're in a Passover decade. He's even got a book called Passover Prophecies, where he's talked about the things that we're dealing with pandemics and riots and upheaval and economic collapse, which really is important that we sow into this Passover right here, because we are going to see some economic shaking. And this Passover really is to, to receive what the Lord is telling us, the revelation he's telling us, and receive the anointing into what we're about to come into, which is a lot of economic shaking. So as we come into a lot of this stuff, I just really thought I'd brush up on some of these biblical parallels that are happening. That's incredible, especially with Trump being arraigned the same time Jesus was being arraigned. That's incredible. This empire in Babylon that was really started with Cyrus, God anointed somebody that was not Christian and started what they call the Achaemenid Empire. Now, this was a Babylonian empire, but it started the Achaemenid era, okay? If I'm pronouncing that right, I always mess that up, but Achaemenid. And so this is where we get all the biblical characters, guys. Like literally, it was King Cyrus, and then 60 years later it was Esther, and then about a generation later it was Nehemiah building the wall. This is all in the Achaemenid Empire in Babylon. This is what, God recorded in the Bible. This is what is most important. And we're seeing all these parallels now. So we talk about Babylon. We're like, oh, Babylon's real evil. Well, God is trying to restore Babylon, not restore Babylon. I did not say that right. We need to exit out of Babylon as much as possible. But the point of the Achaemenid Empire, it's not that it's blessed by God, but that there's always representatives representing God that did amazing things. And this was the time period that was recorded in the Bible. So who are the people? I mean, obviously, there's all kinds of people. You have Cyrus. And then after Cyrus, you had, before Cyrus, you had Daniel. So Daniel was probably telling Cyrus, excuse me, about the prophecies of Isaiah that literally talked about him, about a guy named Cyrus. Daniel was probably telling Cyrus, hey, look, man, you were probably what they wrote about in Isaiah. So that was happening. And we all know Daniel got thrown in the lions then. So we got Daniel and Cyrus and Zechariah and Haggai, Esther, Mordecai, Ezra, Nehemiah, Zerubbabel, all that happened in that Achaemenid Empire. And so this is what is so amazing to me, is that all these people heard from the Lord and they really had to risk their lives in a culture that was really, it was persecuting them. There was always people that were trying to talk to the king and saying, these people aren't of God. And then, but really what you saw with a lot of these characters in the Bible is they went before governmental leaders. They weren't away from politics. They went in front of these governmental leaders, and God had favor over them. And a lot of the situations where they had to trust God had favor over them, they were going to get killed. So we're all worried about politics because it's divisive, but these people were called by God to get into politics. And if they did it, sometimes they were going to get their head chopped off. They didn't do what they were doing right. And so we're getting our head chopped off, kind of in the spirit here, because there's all these demons that are telling us we can't, Christians need to stay out of politics, which is what's changing. We're starting to realize that the reason why our country is the way that it is because Christianity is not in politics. And we've not done what we're supposed to do. And so I want to show you this last picture, which is very important. And I posted it on Facebook the other day, but this is what Kurt Landry had yesterday with some of the root causes of the fall of the Roman Empire. So, you see all the same parallels with Babylon, with Egypt and Babylon and Rome and, Assyria. And so it says open borders, corrupt politicians, loss of common language. You scroll down there, decline of morality, exploding debt, it says over there, terrorist attacks, unbearable taxation up there, it says. So this is where we're at as a country. And there's so many biblical parallels to the Achaemenid Empire and Cyrus. And Cyrus is our Cyrus. Trump seems like he's still anointed because he got arraigned when Jesus got arraigned. They choose his next court date for when Alexander the Great was going to kill Trump, was going to kill the Jews. And, the same thing is about Cyrus. Why Cyrus is important is because Cyrus was the one that made the decree and they were able to rebuild the temple again. And so this led along, it took a little bit, because there were more kings, and Cyrus died, and then there was another person, and you read some of the kings and it gets kind of hectic. But there was always a representative that was willing to go before and remember the documents that Cyrus, the decree of Cyrus to rebuild the walls. And then it went on. And then there was one by King Darius. And then they had to look up, Artaxerxes had to look up the thing of, so it was like this long-standing history of like make Persia or make Achaemenid Empire great again. Like, I'm not kidding you. Like there was a realm of politics of like one party, it looks like, the MAGA party of Persia, I would like to say. I mean, I'm serious. It was like, and it was all about allowing the Jews to rebuild the temple and build the walls. That is exactly what is happening in America right now. That we have to get back to the Judeo-Christian values. We have to understand what the Mayflower Compact of 1620 was, what the real history of this nation was all about. That Cherokee Indians were really Jews. You read about the Bat Creek Jews in Tennessee, where they've literally told us now that the First Nations people of the United States of America were, in fact, Jewish. They were Israeli. They were Hebrew. They have Hebrew roots. And they were the most persecuted of the First Nations people, of the Indians, were ones of Hebrew. I don't know if it's because they weren't great warriors, or they were great warriors, but they were more docile than some of the other tribes, And so we're starting to really get back to the history, and God's uncovering it for America. And God is warning us that if we don't stand up like some of these characters in the Bible did in the Achaemenid Empire, because he even raised up somebody that did not even know him. Isaiah 45 of Cyrus, it all started with somebody he raised up that did not even know him. Daniel, Cyrus, and then the rest is history. It was like a long-standing pattern of people that loved not their lives unto death, and that were trying to save their people in the midst of a culture that was really oppressive to them, So this is where I see this nation at. This is where I see from really this day until April 8th next year, the eclipse that we're seeing and the paradigm that we're seeing from that 7-year period. This is really interesting that really the end of that eclipse is the end of the Jubilee year from a Nisan. If you look at Nisan being the first month as not the civil calendar, but this is the spiritual calendar where, it got changed to the first month because of the Passover, because of the Red Sea. Once the Passover happened, then the first month was Nisan. And so if you're going Nisan to Nisan, really you got a Jubilee from Nisan this year until Nisan next year. And it's a Jubilee year. So I just find that interesting. That's when the eclipse ends. So from the Hebrew mathematical years, it'll be a Jubilee year. Really, it ends in September because you go from September to September. But from a Passover perspective, and if we're in a Passover decade, like Chuck Pierce has said, Nisan until Nisan next year is very important. And that's literally 365 days from today. So it's just incredible, guys. I hope you guys have an amazing Resurrection Sunday. I'm going to continue to share some of the biblical parallels that are going on right now, and that all of biblical prophecy, really most of it, is conditional according to our response. You see in the Achaemenid Empire that there were a lot of people that risked their life. And we know of the stories of those that did not fail. But look how many years it took from the time that Cyrus was anointed to the time that the walls were built. That was like 95 years. That was almost 100 years later till it was completely finished again. But there was favor in between. There was stuff in between. So I'm not saying it's going to take 100 years from right now, but I think that we are at the beginning of a precipice where we're going to have to stand up. We're going to have to really stand firm. And if we play our cards right, we will begin a long-standing pattern of favor with the Lord and a long-standing, the generations of this country. And I personally believe a 100-year reign with the United States. That's just my personal opinion. I believe that possibly from 2020 I tell people this, but 2020 and about 100 years from then. So I don't know. It's whatever God wants to do, but it's going to take representatives in order to stand up and to hear from God and to begin to implement his will on earth as it is in heaven. So I love you guys. I'll see you till next time.